Hi, boys and girls. It is time for chapter 6 and 7 of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. So, when we left off yesterday, Min Lee had just departed for her great adventure to go talk to the man. Oh, goodness. The man in the moon? The man on the moon? I should probably know that. So chapter 6 begins, and she's trying to sneak out of the village. So here's the art. The top of chapter 6. As Min Lee left the house, she was afraid some of her neighbors would stop her or ask where she was going. She felt she must look mysterious with a large bag on her back and full of excitement, but no one noticed her. The neighbors kept sweeping their doorways, hanging their laundry, and preparing dinner. A boy and girl continued their fight over a pretend feast of mud. When the mother called them in for dinner, both refused to move, each clinging to their dishes of wet dirt, and Min Lee had to smile at their foolishness. So Min Lee walked right out of the village without causing a second glance. At the edge of the village, she turned towards Fruitless Mountain. At the bottom of the mountain, she unwrapped her blanket and took out her knife, needle, rice bowl, bamboo piece, and jug of water. Then, trying to remember all of the goldfish's instructions, she cracked off a small bit of the stone and rubbed it up and down the needle 99 times before tossing it back to the ground. Then, she filled her rice bowl halfway with water and let the bamboo float in it. After that, she picked up the needle and looked at the white rabbit on her bowl. "Okay," she said to the jumping rabbit. "Lead the way." And she placed the needle onto the bamboo. Like magic, the needle spun around. Min Lee smiled. "Thank you," Min Lee said again to the painted rabbit. "Now, I'll follow where you want me to go." Min Lee packed up her things and, carefully holding the bowl in her hand, walked in the direction of the needle, past Fruitless Mountain. "Goodbye, Jade Dragon," Min Lee said as she left. "When I come back, I will know how to make you happy again." Min Lee walked and walked. The stony land slowly turned into forest. Even when the moon was high in the sky, she continued. "I want to make sure that I walk far enough so that if Ma and Ba begin to look for me, they can't find me," Min Lee said to herself. The fallen leaves made a soft carpet for her feet, and the night birds flew into the sky as she passed. Only when the sky lightened to gray and the sun began to peek over the horizon did Min Lee sit down and rest against a tall tree. She had traveled deep into the forest, far from her village and home. She was so tired that she quickly fell asleep. Now we have chapter 7. Actually, in chapter 6, can anybody think of what Min Lee has just created? When she took her needle and she rubbed it against a rock, and then she floated it on a piece of floating bamboo and a piece of water, and it spun around and pointed a particular direction. What is that kind of device called? I think that's going to be one of your questions for the story today. All right, chapter 7. The sun had set and the moon was just beginning to rise in the sky when Ma and Ba returned home from the fields. Even though they could smell the steam from the rice cooking, they noticed this house was strangely dark and quiet. "Why is Min Lee sitting in darkness?" Ma wondered as they approached the house. "Perhaps she is sad about giving up her goldfish," Ba said as he shook his head. "Can our fortune be any poorer?" Ma sighed. "We cannot even feed a goldfish for our daughter." But as Min Lee's parents entered the house and read her note, Ma made a noise like a shrieking cat. "I spoke too soon!" Ma cried. "Our fortune is now the worst, for our only daughter is gone." "Quiet, quiet, wife," Ba hushed her. "If we move quickly, we can find her and bring her back home." Ba hurriedly took out his cloth sack and gathered blankets and filled an empty bottle with water. "She has almost half a day travel. half a day to travel ahead, he said. It might take us some time to find her. Ma watched him and then began to pack the cooked rice into a traveling box. But she continued to weep. It's all the stories you told her, Ma sobbed. She believed them, and now she's out looking for fairy tales. Her words cut into Ba like slices from a knife. But even though his face was pained, he said nothing and continued to pack. His hands trembled as he tied the bag closed, but they were gentle when he put them on Ma's shoulders. Let us go, he said. As they left the house, many of their neighbors poked their heads out their doors. They had heard Ma's scream through the thin walls of their closely spaced houses and wanted to know what had happened. When Ma and Ba told them, it seemed as if the whole village poured out from their homes. Never-ending mountain? The old man of the moon? Changing her fortune? The neighbors said. You better go find her, or else she will never return. Foolish Min Li, she is trying to do the impossible. Each villager pointed and nodded towards the direction they had seen Min Li last. Some had seen her heading for home, others toward the rice fields. But finally, a small boy was heard. Min Li left towards Fruitless Mountain, he said. I saw her with her pack. She went that way. So with the villagers waving them goodbye, Ma and Ba walked towards Fruitless Mountain, their dark shadows trailing behind them in the moonlight. But when they reached the mountain, they looked at each other uncertainly. Where did she go from here? Ba wondered, and he lit the lantern in his hand. The soft light seemed to warm the air and soften the growing darkness. Here! Ma cried out, pointing at the ground. There are footprints going toward the woods. Maybe they are Min Li's. Ba looked at the footprints. There was another mark accompanying them, a long, pulling line. Ba pointed at them. But what is that? He wondered. Maybe Min Li was dragging a walking stick, Ma said. The footprints could be hers. Ba looked at the footprints. They seemed small and nimble. Perhaps they are, Ba said. Let's follow them. And so they did. And that is the end of chapter 7. So, no read aloud next week, but we will start after Thanksgiving with chapter 8 and chapter 9. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying this quite a bit.